And I would also direct you to the chat to see the SSBA policy on artificial intelligence being used in the meeting. I can also introduce myself. So my name is Kaylee Mechnick. I am a registered dietitian and PhD candidate at the University of Saskatchewan. I've been working under Dr. Rachel Engler-Stringer, looking at school food program policy in Saskatchewan and across Canada. And I'm also working with the Saskatchewan School Boards Association over the last year as a school food programs researcher. And one of the initiatives that we have been doing through the SSBA is the School Food Speaker Series. I also wanted to acknowledge that I am located on Treaty 4 and that Saskatchewan is covered by Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10 on the lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Dene, Lakota, Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. All people in Saskatchewan are beneficiaries of these treaties. We respect and honor the treaties that were made in all territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and are committed to move forward in partnership with Indigenous nations in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I hope that today we can listen with open ears and hearts and with an intention of learning and to continue our work in relationship with each other through the beauty and nourishment of food and school food programs in our communities. In 2023, the 27 elected boards of Saskatchewan adopted a resolution to advocate with the Canadian School Boards Association for the development of a healthy, universal cost-shared school food program funded by the federal and provincial governments in consultation with school boards. The Saskatchewan government has now signed on to the National School Food Program and will receive $15.8 million of federal funding over the next 3 years for school food programming in Saskatchewan. This is a great success, and we all look forward to the details of how this money will be further distributed. The intention of the School Food Program Speaker Series overall has been to bring partners in the province together to learn and make connections to support school food programming. While the focus has been on Saskatchewan and Saskatchewan projects and Saskatchewan research, we have welcomed partners from across Canada, and we thank those for also joining us. This is the last session, and the series will focus on, or the session today will focus on learning literacy and promoting good nutrition and health through school food programs. So there are 4 sessions today with 5 speakers, and I'm going to now briefly introduce each of those speakers, and each will have about 10 to 20 minutes to present their content. We will take questions at the end of the session, wrapping up around 2:45 to have 15 minutes of questions. Now, if you have questions throughout, you may enter them into the chat. If they're for the speakers, we're going to wait to the end to answer them. But if they're related to school food in general, myself, I will be monitoring the chat throughout. So to kick off our session today, we're going to have Helen Flangeris present. Helen is a health promotion consultant who works on school health with colleagues from the Ministry of Health and other Government of Saskatchewan ministries using a comprehensive school community health approach. She's a representative on the Pan-Canadian Joint Consortium for School Health and has recently been involved in the development of the Canadian standards and indicators for health promoting schools. So thank you, and we welcome Helen. Our next presentation will be from Natalia Salinas, who is she has an MPH as well as a PhD candidate at the University of Saskatchewan. She also works as a research manager with the University of Saskatchewan and has been actively involved in various school food research, overseeing nutritional assessments of school lunches and developing costing and monitoring tools for school food programs. Her current research assesses the impacts of school food on nutritional intake, quality, and educational outcomes. And Natalia's presentation today is going to focus on how school food programs impact student success and achievement and learning in the classroom. Our next presenter after Natalia will be Shelley Thedrow, she's a community coordinator with the Saskatoon Public School Division. And she's been working with Shelley, working with Shelley. I've been working with Shelley over the last few years, but Shelley has been working with the Saskatoon Public Schools for the past 20 years. She has a diverse background combining academic achievement with practical experience and has a Bachelor of Arts in Advanced in International Studies. And she first worked in communications and marketing, later transitioning to her passion working with children and families. So welcome, Shelley, and we're so happy that you're also able to present here today. Her presentation is going to focus on the impacts of a universal school lunch program at her school in Saskatoon. And to conclude the series today, we have two public health nutritionists from the Saskatchewan Health Authority. So we can welcome Dallas Odgers and Stacey Weens, who are both registered dietitians. Dallas works with the Northwest region of the Saskatchewan Health Authority out of North Battleford. He has 10 years of experience as a dietitian, and he focuses on supporting nutrition education and advancing school food initiatives across Saskatchewan. Stacey's also a dietitian, but she began her career in commerce, earning a commerce degree from the University of Saskatchewan, and first worked for a national food distributor, later going into nutrition, where she has now been for the last 13 years. Both Dallas and Stacey's presentation is going to focus on a trauma-informed approach to nutrition, education, and food literacy. So welcome, everybody. And I'm now going to ask Helen to share her screen as our first presenter.
So Katie, I had to send a request for sharing. You should have that.
I never saw a request.
I did. I accepted it.
Oh, well then there you go. Then you should be good.
Okay, thank you. Everyone is different, right? Every application. So just got to give me a shake here. All right, so I think you should see my slides right now. You might, I don't know, you might be able to see my, you might be able to see what I can see as well. So I don't know how to.
I can only see your slides. I think you're good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thank you very much for the introduction, Kaylee. And also thank you to the Saskatchewan School Board Association and the University of Saskatchewan for this opportunity to present on comprehensive school community health as part of the series. So just as, I gotta remember to advance my slides. The Ministry of Health works in partnership with the health system and intersectoral partners to influence policies and systems to create physical and social environments which support the health of the Saskatchewan population. So partners include the Saskatchewan Health Authority and federal agencies such as Health Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada. And intersectoral partners include other government of Saskatchewan ministries such as Ministry of Education, social services. So those are just examples. And health promotion moves beyond an individual's focus on the choices that an individual makes towards strategies to creating supportive social and physical environments. And foundation to health promotion approaches are reducing inequalities so that everyone has the opportunity to be healthy. So specific for this series, we work closely with the Ministry of Education to support health and education sector collaboration for student success. And we appreciate the opportunity to present to this broad audience of health education and other health sector partners. So today, in this short time, I'm going to describe comprehensive school community health, understanding that there might be varied knowledge in the audience, and describing it as an effective, integrated, and holistic approach to support student health, well-being, and academic success, and to demonstrate how comprehensive comprehensive school community health approach can advance existing efforts of schools, communities, school divisions, and partners. And I think I'm going to now switch over to just talking about the approach because it is a bit of a mouthful. So we want to share ways that the approach is applied in our province today. And again, it's going to be a simplified introduction. And so at the end of the presentation, I will add some links to some of the base resources that I'll be referring to for your further information. And so trying to balance giving some broad information for when this concept might be new for some folks with giving some helpful details for those that are more familiar. So in Saskatchewan, the Ministries of Education and Health recommend the use of a comprehensive community health approach to guide collaboration of health, education, and partners towards that common vision of student success. And again, it's very much about that partnership, and it's a great partnership. This approach really brings together our ministries of health and education, which is great. I did want to note that in Saskatchewan, we do add the word community. Like some places might use comprehensive school health, some places might use health promoting schools. This is how we define it in a title. But I think the most important thing are the underlying concepts being the same based on the World Health Organization's Ottawa Charter for Health Promotion. So regardless of what you call it, but these are the terms and the image that we use here in Saskatchewan. So, and again, the focus is really that whole school approach. That's the fundamental piece. And the four integrated components are it's the integration. All right. So the approach recognizes that health and education outcomes are interdependent. So, for example, we know that healthy students are better learners. I don't think that there's anybody here that would disagree with that. And we also know that education is a social determinant of health. So social determinants of health are the social and economic factors that influence people's health. So, for example, a higher level of educational attainment is related to positive health outcomes. And we know that education as a determinant of health is related to other determinants such as income and employment. So it is really about that common vision and common goal that we have for students within our school system. So again, I might be repeating it. So some of the components that I think are foundational to the approach. So not only do you have the four areas, but I think there's some real foundational pieces that are part of that model that I wanted to highlight. And one that the enhancing policies, practice, and initiatives. So it's really, that's a big part of it. So that, and you can apply the approach when developing policy, program, or initiative, either at the government level, the school division level, health sector level, school level. So it really does apply to any level. And another big piece is the engagement of students, staff, administration, families, and community partners. And when we're looking at more of a provincial or a broader level, it's really bringing together those folks along with other partners. So it's really about bringing people together. And another really critical piece of it is that it really does, it's based on specific perspectives, needs, priorities, and assets of the school community or the province or the school division, wherever your line of sight is. I know that there's a very broad audience this. And to demonstrate that is, I sometimes feel we talk about the four areas of comprehensive school health. And what I wanted to just share a little bit about is, okay, how does this look? Like, how do we get started? Or how can we use this? Because it's not a program. It's that approach. So here's an implementation cycle, which is based on, WHO Health Promoting Schools. And it's not rocket science, the cycle. I mean, it makes complete sense, but it is helpful to have a bit of a cycle so that we know that just to look at how to approach and start using those four quadrants a little more wholesomely within a program or initiative. So the diagram shows the steps are repeated to build on policy strategies that are already in place. So although you would typically start kind of at the top where it says establish a school team and develop a common vision, you technically can start at any point in the cycle. And as long as you're kind of repeating, we're really looking at a long-term vision and not, I mean, it can be used with a short-term program or short-term initiative, but at the end of the day, we would like that, like at a school level or wherever you're working, is to use it on a continual level and build on a long-term vision. So, if you're in one example is establishing a school team and common vision, like at a school level, you can use established groups like your school community council, or that staff or parent that's a real passion for school health. Like, those are the people that you want to engage. Use your established groups, and try to develop a broad vision. And it could be related very generally to a broad vision of health, academic success, and academic success, but it also could be around a specific issue. Like it could be something like, well, actually, I'll just talk about in a second here, is that so going back to understanding your school community is you likely do have plans, tools, data, family engagement strategies, and partnerships to get you started on understanding your school community. For example, um, you may have our school data already that you have or use, and you can engage partners and your school community on how to further explore that data and what more data do we need. So that's the understand your school community. And again, it might come across as maybe it's that something like there's been notice of more young people vaping at school. So that might be a very specific issue that you might want to use, or you could use it more broadly. And again, I will use an example today of a breakfast program, just again to highlight how you could integrate the four components. So plan using the four components. So I would say that you're probably already doing comprehensive school community health, because health, food and nutrition is integrated within the health curriculum, and also other curriculums such as food studies, health science 20. And again, being a health person, I am delving into education territory from what I've learned over the years through collaboration. But, there is, my understanding is that there are those opportunities within the Saskatchewan curriculum. Or it could start with something like a Terry Fox run where you're engaging community partners, and you could build on that saying, hey, you know what, like, how do we build in physical activity on a daily basis? Or how do we build on creating positive mental health? Or how do we build on supporting students with different abilities? Like there's just so many ways that you can, and I know that annual Terry Fox run is something that is in most communities around the province. And then the next step is to implement, monitor, and evaluate, sustain. So again, and so what my intention is with giving this information is so that people see themselves maybe in this cycle and the work that you're already doing, because I do know that there's a lot of excellent work that is happening in school communities. And what my hope is around comprehensive school health in today's presentation is just to give a little push for what are the benefits for integrating within your approach. So on that note, I am going to demonstrate some of the four components with an example of a breakfast program, which is related to why people have been gathered here today. And again, I just want to be very clear that these are just examples, and it's very critical and that policies initiatives be guided by engagement, school needs, and versus just doing activities because they're in this presentation or whatnot. So, and I know you folks already do that, but that's just my disclaimer, I guess. And I would like to thank Donna Smith, who's our registered dietitian and Ministry of Health Public Health Nutrition consultant, who for input on this information. So Donna is our nutrition consultant. I'm the comprehensive school health consultant here at the ministry. So we work very much collaboratively, but in 10 minutes, I'm gonna be the one to speak today. So just again, as some examples of teaching and learning, and it's great that we're going to have public health nutritionists, I think, in follow up and other speakers that can really integrate some of the best practices around there, because again, what I'm doing is just examples. So when we look at teaching and learning, generally not related to these to breakfast programs, it refers to formal classroom instruction and informal learning opportunities which support the development of knowledge, abilities, and confidence towards lifelong health and well-being. And a couple of points that I wanted, or 3 points, I guess, that I wanted to bring about here within, let's say, a breakfast program, an example breakfast program, is that the fact about experiential approaches increase children's confidence and comfort to try new foods. So this relates again to a program where you may be offering foods. When it comes to food, children learn best with experience. Food and nutrition is best learned by children with their experiences with foods and eating. And simply providing information about nutritional value of foods is not effective. Um, so, school food programs are an example of an experiential learning opportunity for children. And when in a food program, we have to remember that children who will attend a food program have different experiences with foods which are offered. Some of the kids might have very positive experiences with the foods that are offered and very familiar with a lot of the foods. Some of the foods might be new to some kids, and they also might have had negative experience with these foods. So these are important considerations in a school nutrition food program. So, by engaging children in learning a variety, in experiencing a variety of foods, formally and informally, it's really exposure. So, even just talking positively about food, even seeing pictures of food, doing art around food, all those positive things are really an exposure to food. And when done in a positive, experiential way, really do like it's these little things over time that really do support children with their accepting eating of foods and building them into their lifelong eating habits. So, communication between teachers and those planning the breakfast program can really support students learning about foods and trying new foods. So, again, if there's communication between teachers and those within a school food program, it's really helpful for that back and forth communication. Of course, education training for staff is really important. So, food safety and understanding nutritional guidance is important. And then also another point that I wanted to bring up is the importance of engaging students in all aspects. Not only will children be more encouraged to eat and participate in the foods, but in the foods offered and eating the foods, but it also provides those great knowledge, food and nutrition skills and behaviors. Like just it gives them the opportunity to practice.
So Helen, you have about a minute left. And you put yourself on mute.
Unfortunately, I don't get to present as I have in the past. So, oh no, there we go. Oh my gosh, people. Transition slideshow from current slide. There we go. Apologies. Okay, now I will speed through. And I think really I've gotten through some of the pieces that I think are important. Family and community engagement, another important piece, again, engaging elders and knowledge keepers. Physical and social environments, just wanted to share the fact that when our physical and social environments reinforce what's in the classroom and also in feeding programs and they don't conflict. So for example, what's offered in vending machines, like there needs to be some consistency across the board. And then, of course, effective policy is important to build all of those comprehensive school community health components together. So effective policy can really support that overall implementation. And also just wanted to highlight like Nourishing Minds, Eat Well, Learn Well, Live Well is a document that supports that. And there are nutrition guidelines within that. And one thing I did want to note is you might notice that when you go into the document, the nutrition guidelines do not reflect the current Canada's food guide, but we are currently in the process of updating those, so they will. And again, I can share these resources via the chat of some of the different ways that we supported in the province. And I can provide links to all of these things, except for I don't have anything that I can share around the mental health capacity building program, but you may hear about that program. And I just wanted to share that we do integrate comprehensive school community health in that. So there we go. 10, or I guess, hopefully 15, under 15 minutes. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I will add those links.
Thank you so much, Helen, for providing that overview and certainly connecting to the Nourishing Minds document, which actually talks about or refers to comprehensive school community health as one of the foundations of that document, which many here will be familiar with. And then next, turn it to Natalia, who's going to speak to some of the academic literature and her experiences with school food programs and education. And Helen, yes, please put all those links in the chat and I will also save them and those participating can access. Thank you so much.
Okay, can you see my full screen? Okay, awesome. Well, there you go. Thank you, Kaylee, for the introduction. And as Kaylee mentioned, I'm Natalia, and over the past few years, I've been studying school food programs and their impacts, focusing mostly on nutritional intake and more recently on educational outcomes. Additionally, I've been developing tools to help schools follow up and evaluate their programs, particularly regarding their cost and use. So today I'll present a very concise overview on health and educational goals for student success. And given this is a brief presentation, as Kaylee mentioned, I ask you to please type any questions you might have in the chat so we can discuss them at the end of the session. But I also have included my contact information in the last slide. So please feel free to reach out if you would like to discuss anything further or if you feel like we could support you on any way. Okay. So this is the outline for today. We'll start with a brief introduction and discuss the context and the importance of school food programs. We will then cover some of the most important impacts of school food programs, highlighting how nutrition impacts educational outcomes. We will explore the role of school food programs and how health and educational goals are aligned within these programs. And finally, we'll wrap up with some key takeaways. And to start the presentation, I wanted to do a very little exercise. So I want you to take a minute and think of a time when you were really, really, really hungry. So maybe this was between meetings, maybe you were stuck in traffic, or you were finishing a very long work day. And I want you to think how you felt. So I'll give you a sec to think how you felt when you were really, really, really hungry. Were you focused? Were you patient? Were you motivated? And chances are that you were not. That you were not in the mood to listen, that you didn't want to collaborate, and that you probably didn't even care about your next goals. Probably you were irritated. Most probably you were distracted and felt low on energy. Now imagine being a child who's been asked to sit, to listen, to learn math, or to read a story while you're feeling that way. And we can see that hunger impacts behavior, impacts attention and mood. And that's why school food programs are not just about food, they are about setting up every child for success. So context and importance of school food programs. And first, let's focus on the population, school-age children and adolescents. And they are in a critical phase of development marked by significant physical, emotional, and social changes. During this period, they usually spend many hours daily away from home, interacting with peers and other adults outside their immediate family circle. They begin to establish dietary patterns and they become more independent on their food choices. However, these choices are often influenced by contextual factors that do not have many positive effects. Now, about the place, schools. So, schools are one of the most consistent food environments for this population. Children spend many hours per day, 5 days per week, for many weeks per year, over several years in education facilities. And despite this, there is still a lack of structured interventions addressing food intake in schools. Although we expect that the National School Food Program and the National School Food Policy will address this. However, up to now, research continuously shows that Canadian children skip meals or will have low nutrient meals during school hours. But the good news is that research indicates that school food programs have many positive effects on children. And before discussing these research findings, I wanted to note something. So, school food programs vary widely across the country and the world. Therefore, their impacts will also differ. Regarding dietary intake, a systematic review found that among different school food programs in Canada, some of them were associated with significant improvements in dietary behavior and food intake, especially regarding consumption of fruits and vegetables. They also positively influenced preferences, willingness to try new foods, self-efficacy, attitudes toward foods, and perceptions of healthy eating. There were similar positive associations with dietary quality and outcomes that were observed in other studies encompassing different countries in the world. In terms of food and nutritional knowledge, as you know, some school food programs include an educational component that can focus on nutrition or related topics, and these educational interventions can vary significantly. But some studies have observed that there are some improvements in nutritional knowledge, although it seems like these educational outcomes often follow a dose response pattern, meaning that the greater the exposure to the intervention, which would be education, will lead to more significant improvements. But there's more. And let's now discuss a less studied or considered impact of school food programs, which is their effects on educational outcomes. So there is increasing evidence pointing to the relationship between diet, nutrition, and educational outcomes and engagement. First, let's consider overall quality diet. And research has found that a diet with adequate variety and nutritional value is associated with better academic performance. In simple words, better overall diet quality makes healthier children, and healthier children tend to perform better in school. Additionally, nutrition impacts behavior. And as I mentioned during our exercise, it affects concentration, mood, and other factors that will influence school performance and peer relationships. Universal free school meals have been found to significantly improve academic performance through better nutrition and also to increase school attendance. And there are two main pathways that could explain this positive impact. First, with a focus on improved attendance. So school food provision will motivate children and their families to ensure their regular school attendance so that the children can access to these meals. And this increased attendance will result in a more consistent presence in classes, which naturally contributes to better educational outcomes. The second pathway will be focused on better nutrition. When schools provide meals, children receive better nutrition. A well-nourished child is a healthier child, which means fewer sick days and a more consistent attendance. Moreover, a healthier child can concentrate better and has improved learning processes, leading to enhanced educational outcomes. In summary, universal free school meals not only ensure that children are well fed, but they also play a crucial role in their academic success by promoting regular attendance and better nutrition. And these factors together create a strong foundation for improved educational outcomes. Specifically in terms of academic performance, studies have found a positive association with math scores, with English language arts scores, and staff perceptions on students' academic performance and readiness to learn. There are also significant social and behavioral impacts. Again, as I mentioned previously, the higher intake affects various aspects of the school life, including well-being, social inclusion, peer relationships, and behaviors. There was a study where students recognized the importance of free school meals, and they appreciated how they reduced stigma and they provided financial relief for their families. However, there is still limited knowledge about the impacts of school food programs in Canada, specifically related to educational outcomes. And as researchers, we have much work to do to fully understand and optimize these programs. So with all this in mind, I hope we all are in the same page and understand that school food programs go beyond just feeding children, and that by providing meals and snacks during the school day, school food programs improve access to nutritious foods. Let's always consider that for some kids, school meals are the most nutritious and important meals they'll have during the whole day. School food programs can also reduce the stigma associated with food consumption, especially when everybody in the school gets to eat the same meals. However, it's important to mention that a need-based program might unintentionally highlight financial disparities among kids and therefore create a stigma. And additionally, school food programs can include food literacy and sustainability education, which can have long-lasting impacts on the students' knowledge and behaviors. And therefore, we can see how these programs align beautifully with our goals as educators and as public health professionals, supporting both health and educational success. School food programs can integrate health topics into the curriculum, so we are again aligning education and health goals into one. They can potentially improve attendance, classroom behavior, and test scores. And education can impact opportunities in life. So school food programs can lead to better overall health outcomes and well-being on the short, medium, and long term. The return on investment for school food programs is quite impressive, with a return of $3 to $10 per every dollar invested. This demonstrates how school food programs can have critical and long-lasting impacts, not only for students, but also for their families and the entire society. So now let's wrap up with some key takeaways. First, kids do not learn effectively if they're hungry in the short term or if they are malnourished in the medium to the longer term. Hunger and malnutrition directly impacts their ability to concentrate and to perform academically. School food programs have been associated with numerous benefits for students, including nutritional intake, improved overall health, and enhanced educational outcomes. And these programs are a testament to the power of collaboration requiring joint efforts from both the educational and the health sectors as they intersect our shared goals. While we have made significant strides, there are still many knowledge gaps. However, we are actively working to address them. In my own case, I'm studying the impacts of a 2-year universal school lunch program. And recently, we have added the educational outcomes as a component, which is a very new area of research in the Canadian setting, and we hope to have results soon. So before I finish, I wanted to express my gratitude and not for listening to me. I do appreciate it, but I also and especially wanted to say thank you for being here, and for caring. We all know that school food programs need a lot of work for schools, especially for certain positions. And you will see it in the next presentation with Shelly, who has done incredible work in her school. But they also mean a great deal for children and families. And now, really, before I go, I wanted to share a quote. So yesterday, a colleague and I were in a school doing a focus group. And we were asking the kids, why do you think, well, this is a school that has implemented a universal lunch program here in Saskatchewan. And we asked the kids, why do you think a universal free lunch program is important? So we have a female participant from 6th grade who said the following, and I will quote her. When you're hungry, you are focusing on your hunger, so you can't learn. And if you can't learn, you cannot succeed. And she's 100% right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Natalia. What a wonderful overview of some of the research and grounding it in the experience of children you've been working with, and really bringing home the importance of these programs and really the essence of why they're important. And I think a lot of echoes will be, even though they're a lot of work, why are we doing this work? So thank you for bringing that forward. And Shelley will also, I'm sure, as she said, demonstrate some of the efforts schools are going through to make sure these programs are there for students and their families. So, Shelley, you can come up next, and I will have your presentation. Give me a second.
Thank you. So yeah, thanks for your help there, Kaylee, for doing this technological little piece for me, and thanks for having me here today. And you can just forward this next slide, just to say that I really appreciate Natalia's sharing, and really mine is the story about this program. So it's a more personal reflection, I guess, and what I've experienced these last few years working toward this universal school lunch program. So over 4 years ago, I guess, my work at W.P. Bate Community School, it became directly connected to this national research project that was examining implementing universal school lunches. And, I actually was feeling very excited and hopeful, but a bit overwhelmed. And my buy-in and belief was high. And I've always believed that universal school lunch programs are essential for student health, well-being, and academic success. Now, you heard a bit more research on it, but I know there needs to be more direct studies. But nutritional programs in schools were not new to my work as a community school coordinator with Saskatoon Public Schools, because my role as a community coordinator had been to support nutrition programs and their implementation through a variety of funders, through corporate and community organizations, charitable donors, in-kind food donations, and government and school divisions operating funds. And you can move forward on the slide there, Kaylee. Working in community schools, actually, historically, you probably know or may not know, but there's neighborhoods where the school population is more diverse, it's multi-ethnic, there's refugees, lots of refugees, English is learned, additional language learners, and a higher concentration of Indigenous students. So often this means that there's more struggles with poverty and socioeconomic issues. So food insecurity is one of those realities. And so I think working toward these universal lunch programs is a noble and necessary ambition. And I think Natalia talked about that quite a bit. So I've been really privileged to participate in this study that occurred 4 years ago, and work with a team of people like those on the panel here, helping who really care about children and their learning environments. And so helping to make a case, I think, for universal lunch programs that, even though it's sometimes exhausting, as you talked about, it's often very energizing. And we all know, as we've heard from the speakers already, that children do not learn well and are unprepared to learn when they're hungry, and they do not have adequate food and nutrition to grow. So we are, I think, in the business of feeding hungry minds with a desire to be the highlight of a student's day, one of the highlights. And we feed children so that they can grow and flourish. So 4 years ago, when our nutrition program began, or just as we're transitioning into the study, we actually served breakfast, lunch, and snacks to students who identified a need. And so we had about 150 students who accessed lunch daily, and the food program was universally accessible. Our menus revolved around a variety of sandwich options, with a weekly offering of salad, a daily raw vegetables, and or choice of fruit and milk. And the budget for food and supplies for in my area and as delivering this was about $4,000 a month. And there was also additional in-kind donations. But with the advent of the study, it was necessary for us to increase our food production and expand the menu significantly. So we began to work through the research project, and I think we can go to the next slide maybe. And things needed to be addressed, of course, was to upscale our kitchen and food service production and capacity to increase the number of students that we fed. So the initial need was just to upgrade that nutrition room, creating a commercial kitchen space, as you can see some of the pictures there. And academics and experts in the field assisted and offered some insights as to the design and flow of the kitchen, which was helpful. And the knowledge and practical experience of our cafeteria workers or our nutrition workers was key as we added to and adjusted the workspace. So it changed and reconfigured a few times, and changes were again needed actually in 2022 when a daycare was added to our school space, and nutrition workers shared the kitchen space area with the daycare nutrition worker. So cupboards, countertops, appliances were moved and added along with electrical upgrades. And as you know, then you need administrators. Of course, everybody needs a big team that's on board and working together. But I think really key to this successful implementation of the school food program was flexibility and adaptation. So when a project or study such as this presents itself, those working at the school may feel apprehensive and tapped out, thinking, I cannot do another thing, because we know how busy the school gets. And an adaptive attitude and willingness to pivot and grow and look for opportunities is really essential. And I believe our team did that. And we were really grateful to have Kaylee and Natalia and others working with us on this project. So with a target to feed 340 lunches daily, plus 50 staff members, and increase our storage space, upgrade commercial appliances, expand cleaning and prep areas for accessibility and efficiency, the job did seem a bit daunting. But from the beginning, there was other challenges that arose. Operational challenges emerged within the human resource sector. So I think we can move to the next one too. Staffing, next slide. Staffing lunch supervisors and having a manpower in the kitchen when the cafeteria worker was away highlighted a deficit of available workers to substitute into the nutrition area. So pulling staff, which you can see the administrators there in the middle, including myself and the administrators, to work in the kitchen was sometimes necessary. And as the program continued, the demands of the cafeteria workers and and their scheduled hours illustrated the need for more workers or more hours. So prepping like vegetables and fruit as needed required increased manpower. So we enlisted some volunteers, and that was part of things that I worked on too. There's a lady there from Faith Community. She was a retired woman who worked at a church service group, and also various academic programs who need service learning practicums to be fulfilled. Helped us with this manpower gap. So we used like nurses and pharmacy students who wanted to work to complete their studies, their practical. So these were good and creative ideas to help with resources. So this manpower challenge is one of the things that's actually being addressed currently with the advancement of this universal lunch program. And that's been awarded through the Health Agency of Canada and Saskatoon Public Schools, along with the University of Saskatchewan. And CHEP is one of the partners too to develop and implement a successful food service model for universal lunches in elementary schools. So Jordan Minoglu, I think I'm saying her name right, but she is the manager that's been hired to oversee the project and has been tasked with recruiting and training staff to support the school food programs. And so building capacity, skills, and providing regular professional development for nutrition workers and it has improved substantially. So hiring substitute workers and having adequate workforce to run the food program is challenging, but Jordan has met this challenge. And because of this, too, having this advancement of the program, and my role has changed, my role and responsibilities toward the lunch program. And the mission for this project is to provide foods that are healthy, sustainable, and delicious, as well as creating safe environments for children to discover and explore food. And I think you can move the slide forward. So my focus and energy regarding the nutrition program has shifted away from operational needs to supporting breakfast and snack rollout and providing practical resources, example, like food for cooking classes or whatever other resources teachers might need to support their educational activities and to connect the learning to the food program. Okay, sorry. So there you can see our nutrition worker there. And you can note there's little chili oils in the corner because I'll speak to that. And there's a parent from the school community council who's also cooking some muffins for breakfast. We can probably go to the next one here too. Next slide. In fact, so one of the initial challenges that we faced when beginning the universal lunch program was to reduce food waste and have students eat and enjoy the lunches. So many children were resistant to testing and eating vegetables, especially if they did not recognize the food served. And I think we spoke to that a few times, especially it was Helen, I think, talked a little bit about that. But offering or it probably was Natalia, but offering these nutrient dense dishes and a menu that met budgetary restrictions as well, and trying to be efficient and duplicatable, didn't always meet with the approval and the eyes and the taste of the students. And some of you may know, especially younger children, do eat with their eyes. And so exposure and education really helped increase students' appetite for a variety of vegetables and pulses and legumes. And I think exposure through lunch meals tangibly changed the quality and variety of foods consumed by students. Their willingness to expand their palate and taste was very noticeable. Children had fun exploring vegetables through edible food art, which you might see there, as well as tasting and observing the activities in the garden that they did. And students were given voice, even just recently this year, to contribute to these menu enhancements and recipe trials. So the feedback from the students led our lead nutrition worker, Candace, to create and provide these various chilies or spices, oils, and sauces that you saw on the previous slide to add to their dishes at lunch because they wanted more intense flavors. And we aim to provide a very positive food culture in our school. So we try to be responsive and think about those things and get the feedback. So assembly and just some of the things that we do to try and address this and to connect the learning and help improve students' tastes and acceptance and the food culture is we had an assembly. I think that might be, you can move the slide again, Kaylee. Assembly and food learning events or tasting events help children explore and compare foods. They looked at raw versus cooked vegetables and examined their smell, taste, and texture. Children could observe preferences. They had opportunities for taste experiences or to taste some cultural dishes. I think that chicken adobo was one of their favorite, the one kids told me yesterday, and expanding their food experience. And I don't know if in that slide, I can't remember what dish that was. I don't know if that's chicken adobo. It might be some kind of biryani, if I'm saying it right. Social and academic connections are abundant, I believe, with food. And high, for example, I purchased a high-grade food processors or smoothie maker to utilize in various lessons. So you could go classroom to classroom, and students examined the Canada Food Guide, and they explored food choices. I did this with some grade 5s and 6 classes and the teacher, and they could measure and choose ingredients and experiment with taste and more nutrient-rich foods. For example, we created a chocolate hummus made with chickpeas and cocoa and some coconut milk and dairy, sometimes dairy, and this really helped to expand their knowledge and taste. The students looked at snack choices that offered energy and health and ingredients that were meant to build more muscle and bones and overall health. So they were learning about that as they were tasting and creating. And also it was directly, of course, it directly impacts health and a lot of lessons, a lot of curriculum connections. I think you could take away like in health and science, but also vocabulary and math. Like, there's graphing, there's comparing, contrasting, social studies, geography. Really, there's so many aspects of learning that connect to the food program, I believe, and to opportunities to eat and to taste food, and opportunities to make connections to curriculum and make learning experiential through food exploration is a huge benefit and opportunity for students to expand their learning. So lunch, I believe, is a good medium to help deliver education, lunch or food in general at the school. So curriculum, and there's some curriculum guides that we utilize that were developed through the study, the food literacy lessons from the Good Food for Learning Universal Curriculum Integrated School Lunch Project. And I guess we could maybe share that, I don't know, from the panel here. That's very helpful, and we utilize that. And also our partners with CHEP, they help to improve food programming in our schools, and they've offered some, after school cooking classes, chefs in training, and lots of connections to community gardening and things like that. And we know actually that it's not just what gets onto the plate, but also the messaging that accompanies it. For example, like I was in March, we highlighted, and with Jordan's work with Chef and others, that fruit and vegetable of the week, for example, and it was celebrated during Nutrition Month, and students were exposed to things like dragon fruit, kiwi, green beans. And so we really give them that exposure, but also just want to create a positive food culture. So working with student leadership initiatives also And I think that you can move this forward, the slides, including students in delivering of the lunch program, creating additional opportunities for students to gain skills. So you can see some students there in the middle that are serving food. So the grade 7-8 teachers discovered there's a food safe course. I think it's from Alberta, actually. And they did the learning and the lessons in the classroom and wrote it, and then they got certification. So this was also helpful for home ec and IA or whatever, like delivering some of those connections. And we developed a kitchen club with that, and it provides an opportunity for students to learn and increase skills and ownership of the food program. Senior student teams are supported and are scheduled, and they help serve lunch. And this not only increases their learning opportunities, but addresses some manpower and supervision and time constraints too. So it's a really good thing. But the objective to foster positive food relationships and healthy choice among students is foundational to the lunch program. And I think there's just another slide after this that shows kind of the kids doing this. So additionally, the success of the menu is related to students' perceptions and beliefs around food. So intentional learning, connections, and food experiences grow these beliefs and perceptions. So like I said, those updates and recipe developments and working on the menu cycles and being somewhat responsive to the student feedback and observations that there's food waste, that they're throwing away a bunch of food and no one's eating it. Well, maybe there's an adjustment that needs to be made, and our people, we work at that. And also their students cooking, you can see there, being involved in the garden increases food literacy. I think the next one maybe has a garden picture. There's connections of mental, physical health, social, and emotional benefits. So I think like growing food and working in the school garden is a wonderful learning tool and an opportunity for students. Planting, growing, tending, I mean, those hit on lots of objectives and learning outcomes. So we, like I said, utilize CHEP to partner with us to help with some of those community garden resources. And I also received a few years ago, and Kaylee actually was in there helping me write this application for funding to the Whole Kids Foundation, which was really great because that really helped us sort of initiate and get more of our garden built, and provides an opportunity for kids to get excited about fresh vegetables and other nutritious foods. And so I think the other key element here is just kind of, for me, in my shift and what I've worked on through the food program, is sort of leading school staff and teachers towards this vision and understanding of the impact of the food program, as well as making these curricular connections within the school day. And it has really gained momentum throughout the study and continues to build. So I try to be that champion, because I do think that helps with all the pressures and stuff on, in education nowadays, and that classroom, to try and meet all the demands of the thing. It helps to have a champion, someone who's sort of maybe helping to move this forward. And I don't know, I'm probably getting very close to the end here. I don't know if I have time to share a couple stories, but I do believe that you can see how our university, yes, thank you for doing that, pushing the slide forward. Those are some more fun things that we did with food and the harvest. But I think you can see how that universal lunch program in our school feeds the minds and bodies of our children. It increases their knowledge and engagement. It provides physical and social nourishment. It assists educators in educating, I believe, and it aids families free from worries of inadequate like nutrition supports from their kids. And in fact, I have a story I guess I can quickly share with you just to illustrate that. I mean, there's a number of them, but here's just a few comments from educators, for example, because a lot of teachers actually are always having to stash, like wherever you go, if you talk to educators, they sometimes start stashing, food in their drawers or trying to buy granola bars or whatever, because they know that there's hungry kids. And so they are really accept and appreciate that we have a food program. So a few comments came here from a few educators. One said, a large portion of the students look forward to a hot lunch. It's a meal they can count on. They really miss the nutrition program during holidays and school closures. Children who were the most picky eaters now consistently eat vegetables. Many children did not know the names of vegetables or fruit, but now do. Parents may not be able to buy a $6 or $7 cantaloupe, but students have tried it at school and find they like it. A number of students take medications, and when they do not eat regularly, it affects them. So providing nutrition for these kids is very helpful. I noticed the difference in their behavior. And then one of the administrators said, a variety of vegetables the kids take is very noticeable. Most students didn't know what a pepper was, and now the variety and amount of vegetables eaten has significantly increased. The students may not have access to this variety and amount of vegetables and fruit at home. And one grade 8 student told me, and I did have conversations in the last couple of days with a few students, and said, we try new things and experience different food. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. And the food is good and interesting. It gives me energy and helps my mindset, is another student. One student in the senior end said, I can eat regularly here, and I get some protein. And a grade 3 student told me, I give this lunch a 20 out of 20. So this one story, I guess I can close with this, but I had a student this year, like part of my job too, is when we're looking at attendance and academics, like to try to meet with families who were really struggling, and some kids that are not attending school very regularly at all. And one of our grade 8 students had missed a lot of school and was not really eating anything when she was at school. She began eating a bit more in December, and now looks forward to lunching. So I had been working with her and the family to get her to school. And she had also been exhibiting a lot of anxiety and reluctance to eat in front of and with her peers. So she began eating lunch in my office several months ago before December. And her attendance has improved dramatically. And she was logging a lot of sick days. She was always sick. And she would always tell me when she started eating lunch that she had a stomachache after eating. Her stomach always hurt. But now she no longer expresses that problem. We've been eating little bits and doing a bit. And she told me recently, she said, I like eating here at school. I just love the lunches. They are so much better than our food at home. How much, we pretty much eat the same thing every day, she said. The lunches here are more flavorful and are really good. And her mom actually shared with me, and that takes a lot of humility to be able to do this, but she shared that they often shop at the dollar store for food items, and most of their diet consists of noodles, like the ramen, those noodle packets, and some soups. And her mom is very grateful to have nutrition available at school that helps get her kids to school. And I guess I get one last thing, and I know I'm talking really fast, but I'm trying to get this all in. And I did hear something the other day. I shared from Indigenous knowledge keepers. They said, we understand that food provides nutrition, but it also provides so much more. It builds community and relationship. Food can be medicine and offer healing. Food is a part of spirituality, and it offers hope. So I think that's a really lovely thing to think about, and a really powerful thing to think about. So thank you very much. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Shelley. What a beautiful quote to end on. That was really heartfelt and really meaningful. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. We're going to move next to Dallas and Stacy to finish up our time here together. And if there's some questions that are starting to brew in people's minds that are here, feel free to start entering them into the chat, because we'll address them in about the 10 minutes we'll have at the end. So thank you so much. And you guys
Okay.
kick off.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the invite. We have a big topic today, and it's on trauma-informed nutrition education. The original version of this presentation, just quite a bit longer, was created by a group of public health nutritionists within the SHA. So we just want to give a special shout out to them. Today, we're introducing the concept of trauma-informed nutrition education. This approach that we're now starting to embrace in our work in Saskatchewan encourages us to consider the content provided in classrooms and programming, recognizing that some material can unintentionally cause harm. Trauma-informed education is not just about what we teach, but how we teach it, including the assumptions we bring and the environment that we create. And as we wrap up our presentation today, we kind of want that to have a lingering question out there for you guys, which is, how can we meaningfully integrate trauma-informed nutrition practice in school food environments and health education here in our province? Can you remember a positive experience you've had with food growing up? It might be the first time you've tried a favorite food, or a memory of making a family recipe. Positive experiences can strongly influence how you view and interact with food, and they may have even shaped your relationship with food. Can you recall a negative food experience from your childhood? Maybe it was a time when you were pressured to eat something you didn't like, or when someone made you feel bad about how much or how little you ate. For example, being forced to eat a certain food and then getting sick might still cause you to avoid that food to this day. So when we reflect on positive and negative food experiences, it reminds us that food and eating is deeply personal. Positive food experiences can create connection and comfort, while negative ones can lead to lasting food aversions or even trauma. So trauma occurs when when a person experiences a physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening event. Trauma can affect a person's relationship with food, nutritional health, and increases the risk for developing chronic diseases. It has serious impacts on overall health and well-being. When we understand trauma, we shift our perspective from asking, what's wrong with you, to what happened to you, recognizing that poor health or eating habits may be rooted in past experiences. So to understand why a trauma-informed nutrition approach matters, we need to touch on something called adverse childhood and community experiences, or ACEs. These are potentially traumatic events like substance abuse in the home, abuse, neglect, discrimination, natural disasters, pandemics, or even growing up in poverty. When these experiences are severe, frequent, or prolonged, they can lead to what is called toxic stress. ACEs are common. Around 60% of people have experienced one, and 1 in 5 have had 4 or more. More ACEs means higher health risk. For example, children with 4 or more ACEs are nearly twice as likely to develop heart disease or diabetes later in life. So it's safe to say that in every classroom or school food program, there are going to be children who carry these experiences. Now, we'll talk about some ACEs that are very food related, and it just highlights that food experiences can be deeply connected with trauma. So a few to consider: unreliable access to food, or we usually refer to this as food insecurity. It can lead to anxiety, mistrust, and preoccupation with food. Families may rely on food donations or low cost filling foods and experience ongoing stress about food availability. We have shame or stigma around accessing food and assistance. So many families need food support, but they avoid it due to judgment and stigma. Children may feel embarrassed about using school meal and snack programs, highlighting the importance of the universal access when implementing programs, which we know is one of the goals of the National School Food Program. Sometimes we see loss of food traditions with newcomers to Saskatchewan and other populations. The other one, food restriction and control. Some children experience food restriction or control at home, which can sometimes be influenced by cultural pressure to be thin, or maybe there's a fear of the child becoming overweight. This can include pressuring or bribing children to eat certain foods. Great examples: vegetables before allowing other foods. At school, we might see some lunch monitoring, food tracking in lessons, maybe even labeling foods as good or bad. These experiences can cause stress, anxiety, and trauma, and they can contribute to disordered eating. Using food as a reward or punishment. When we use food to control behavior, it can undermine a child's natural cues for hunger and fullness, which can impact their relationship with food, and sometimes reinforce shame and create unhealthy eating patterns. The last one there, we have weight stigma and body shaming. Weight bias can be common in schools and at homes. We know that children are over 60% more likely to be bullied in school if they live in a larger body. Weight bias can come in the form of overt bullying, or it can be through very subtle terms and comments referencing to body size. Things like weight loss challenges, negative comments about your own body, or connecting specific foods to negative health outcomes can be harmful. So we should work to avoid assumptions based on body size and focus on supporting all students with respect and inclusivity. These are just a few ways that food intersects with trauma. And back to how toxic stress. So toxic stress isn't just feeling stressed. It's a biological response where stress hormones, in particular cortisol, stay elevated for long periods of time. This kind of stress affects the whole body. Physical symptoms can include changes in appetite, chronic pain, digestive issues, sleep problems, fatigue, and shifts in blood pressure. Emotional and behavioral symptoms might show up as anxiety, irritability, low motivation, hyperactivity, or withdrawal, especially in students. Food-related symptoms can include hoarding or binge eating, food refusal or anxiety about new foods, preferences for high fat, high sugar, or processed foods. Some adults may find it hard to plan or budget because survival mode doesn't support long-term thinking. And over time, disordered eating or food addiction can develop. You may see these patterns in students, and recognizing that these behaviors may stem from trauma, not just bad habits or poor choices, can change how we respond. And this is the heart of trauma-informed nutrition education, approaching food and eating with compassion, context, and care. Switch it to stage.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
Good.
Okay, great. Thank you. The following 6 guiding principles lead all trauma-informed work, and we are now learning how to apply them to food and nutrition programming and education. So the number one, and you may have training in trauma-informed work already, so these are just the same principles just applied to a food nutrition lens. So food safety and security. The one important concept of safety and security is using food neutral language. We have alluded to it earlier, but I've not given a full description. So food neutral language involves referring to food by its actual name. So a cookie instead of a treat. And avoiding labels like good, bad, or healthy, unhealthy. Although well-intentioned, these labeling words may lead children to feeling shame or guilt with eating, their body image, their home environment, etc. So food neutrality encourages a more balanced perspective on food, where all foods can be part of a healthy eating pattern, fostering a positive relationship with food and body image. So food neutrality focuses on taking the attention away from the benefits or consequences of food items. And it looks at creating a non-judgmental environment for children to feel safe eating a variety of foods. Children are concrete thinkers, and it's not until age 12 that they start to understand abstract comments or concepts such as nutrition. So this may not be where education about food and eating should focus, especially in those younger grades. Key leaders in this area are focusing instead on hands-on food experiences. And I could have given a standing ovation to Shelley. That was a beautiful, beautiful presentation. So I was just thinking about you this whole time. So that's obviously shown well in the WP Bates programming. Our goal is to create food programs and classrooms where students feel physically and emotionally safe. Examples of this are seating for all body types, food and weight neutral language, and ensuring there is no food or body shaming, even of ourselves, as Dallas already mentioned. Just little comments about ourselves, even children pick up on that. Principle number 2 is cultural, historical, and gender considerations. So we want to honor the diverse identities and experiences of students, avoid assumptions or biases around food, body size, and cultural practices. Use materials that reflect a variety of bodies, traditions, and family food norms. Create spaces for students to share their food stories and cultural knowledge if they choose. The third principle is peer support. So use classroom discussions and group activities to encourage students to learn from each other about food skills or traditions. Invite students to share what they know and do at home. Foster a sense of belonging through food-related group projects, which I think, again, was highlighted so well in Shelley's pictures and slides, that sense of belonging with the food. Principle 4 is collaboration and mutuality. So build trust with students by involving them in school food programs and classroom decisions. 5 is empowerment, voice, and choice. Give students opportunities to contribute in order to build on their strengths, skills, interests, and experiences. This may include activities like cooking, gardening, tasting, storytelling, or community involvement. Acknowledge that not all students have the same access to foods at home, have different food norms in their home, and that eating looks different to everyone. In the early years, focus on food skills to help build interest and comfort around different foods and eating. Where food comes from, how to prepare it, and how it relates to their own lives. In the older grades, so after age 12, as we mentioned, continue to build food skills and celebrate food's role in social, emotional, and spiritual well-being, not just for their nutrients and the physical health. And 6 is trustworthiness and transparency. So model respectful communication and approach students from a place of empathy. Trust students to know their own hunger and fullness cues without pressure or praise. And that leads us into the next slide, which talks about the division of responsibility for feeding and eating. So back to that trustworthiness piece. So the division of responsibility is a framework developed by Ellen Satter, who is a dietitian and a social worker. I'm not sure if you've heard of it before. We often use it in teaching concepts to families regarding picky eating in toddlers or preschool age, but it is extremely applicable beyond that into the school setting as well. It is widely accepted framework used all across Canada, and it's also now in Canada's Food Guide toolkit for educators. I've been teaching this concept for about 10 years, and the presentation is typically a 2-hour presentation, but let me try to summarize it in 2 minutes. It'll be a fun challenge. So the framework highlights that feeding is a shared responsibility where adults provide leadership and children have choice within this structure. So in the school setting, adults are responsible for when to eat, where to eat, and what food to offer to eat. So I'll go into those a bit more. So when to eat, schools decide the timing of meals and snacks. It might be before recess or after recess, might provide enough time to eat. So that's the decision of the adults in the school setting. The other decision of adults is where children are allowed to eat their lunch or snacks. It might be at desks or at tables. It might be in a lunchroom, and things like making sure the TVs are turned off so that they can really focus on their food. And the third concept is what types of food to offer in the school environment. So this might be the foods you're offering at nutrition programming, sold in the cafeteria, canteens, vending machines, fundraising. So this is where you can have really important impact, not only at home with children, but in the school setting, is the foods that are offered. Now, a caveat on this in a school setting is if children are bringing a packed lunch from home, that decision has been made already by an adult. So the adult at home might have decided what food was available in the home. They may have told the child what they could pack in their lunch. They made that decision, or they may have packed the lunch. Regardless, they are creating that decision at home of what's available. So that means that that decision of what came in that lunch from home has already been made, and it's not the school's decision at that point of that food. So then the children's decisions from are whether or not to eat, which could go into quite a long description here, but that is truly on the child to decide if they are going to eat. It's the child's decision of how much to eat, and it's their decision in what order to eat the food in front of them. Yeah, so that is a very quick summary. I just have a few more points here before I switch slides. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask after, because it's there are lots of resources online as well on this topic. So the division of responsibility honors and preserves children's ability to respond to hunger and fullness. When the division of responsibility occurs, children will grow as nature intended, do better with eating, have a better relationship with food, and learn to become competent eaters. The overall, this is a quote from Ellen Satter, who developed this theory. The overall goal of the division of responsibility is to support children with developing a lifelong healthy relationship with food, not to get them to eat their peas for supper. Next slide. So we're just going to provide you with a really quick scenario of something you might see in a school setting, and then we'll and try to apply a trauma-informed lens to this scenario. So the scenario is an adult supervises lunches at school. This is without a school food program. This is packed lunches. They notice that kids are coming to school with a lot of highly processed foods in their lunches and that they do not follow Canada's food guide. They believe that the poor behavior they are seeing in classes is linked to some of the higher sugar foods. The adult tells students at lunch that they shouldn't be eating so much sugar and that if they eat more vegetables and fruit, they will be healthier. Students are told they have to eat the healthy foods before the junk foods. So we're going to move to how this would look with a more trauma-informed approach. So with a more trauma-informed lens, we would remove the moral values such as healthy, unhealthy, placed on foods in children's lunches, the foods that children choose, or the order they eat their food in. So there'd just be no moral value placed on those decisions. The division of responsibility as outlined before. And there would be an increased focus on what the school is offering for foods. As I mentioned, in your canteens, meal programs, classrooms. And as I said earlier, this is where we can have such a strong impact on how children learn to eat. What else could the school do to support healthy eating environment in the lunchroom? They could eat with the students. They could create a positive, pleasant eating environment, limit distractions, foster positive conversations at meals, allow enough time to calmly eat, and some places are able to try recess before lunch. So just to summarize our final slide, or almost last slide. So just to summarize what we've talked about, here are some of the key themes of an effective approach. So being aware of and building education and food programming with the understanding of how early trauma or negative food experiences may shape current behaviors. We want to take a positive and inclusive approach to food and eating, focus on exploring food with neutral exposures and promote curiosity. We want to avoid activities that sort foods into healthy or unhealthy categories. And we want to promote a positive relationship with food. So that we're not encouraging dieting attitudes and behaviors. So we want to avoid messaging about weight, avoidance of certain foods, tracking personal food intake, counting calories, and we want to avoid shame for eating so-called unhealthy foods. We want to consider the roles adults and children have in feeding and eating to help children trust adults and their own ability to become competent eaters and to preserve children's ability to respond to hunger and fullness. And we want to connect to students' lives and encourage hands-on experiences, as again was mentioned many times. So especially for children under the age of 12, we want to use activities that engage students with food in tangible ways rather than talking about nutritional facts and healthy habits. And we want to build food skills and familiarity with a variety of foods. And I think these exact words were used by Shelley, so that's incredible. And this is our last slide now. So there is a lot of exciting work going on in this area across Canada. As we mentioned earlier, we're really just starting to connect some of these concepts in a tangible way to supporting schools in Saskatchewan. In the coming years, we're really hoping to build terminology and context that worked well for our educators and education system here in this province. And we hope to learn from you how to best support this work. To recap what Dallas said at the beginning, we would like to leave you with the question of how can we meaningfully integrate trauma-informed nutrition practices in school food environments and health education across Saskatchewan. And that's just our references, and thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. What an excellent question to end on and for people to think about and take away. So we only have a few minutes left of the session today. Are there any questions right now for the presenters while they're here? I noticed that Helen put her resources into the chat for you to follow up with. And Stacey, if you have any key references actually in your slide, maybe you want to throw them in the chat too. Some of those looked really helpful. I'm not sure if I should pose a question or if we should call it. We only have 3 minutes. I'm thinking maybe probably that we should call it to respect people's time. But is there any final, after everybody's heard these comments, or even from the presenters, is there any final comments or takeaways you'd like to share after hearing everybody else's? We started with the comprehensive school health, which I think really, through all the practical examples that Shelley went through, and even Natalia sort of showed how comprehensive school health programs can work in practice. And we touched a lot on nutrition education, the learning and literacy. But anything else from the presenters? Well, then thank you all very much. As I indicated, this was our last session. I will be sending out an evaluation as well as a link to all the recorded presentations for those who have registered for the webinar and the series. So you'll be looking forward to seeing those in your emails in the coming weeks. And we'd love to hear any feedback about this session and others, because this was the first sort of, as far as I'm aware, having worked and lived in this province for the last 10, 15 years, one of the first school food program speaker series that's been hosted. So we look forward to hearing any feedback about how it went or any future topics and any impacts it's made in your work. There's one question from Sue Ann, and I don't know if I can answer that, but what percentages of Indigenous students go to public schools in Saskatchewan? I don't know, but I do know that when I've talked to different school divisions, some divisions, 95% of the students identify as Indigenous, whereas in others, it's about 15 to 20. At a provincial level, I'm not sure. But Sue Ann, you can email me if you want more information on that. I believe you have my email address. So again, thank you very much, and I'll be in touch. Take good care.